The Toronto Blue Jays have won a game just managing 3 hits. How in the world did they pull that off? We'll cover it right here on Locked On Blue Jays.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. But for the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is sponsored by 5 Hour Energy. Go to 5hourenergy.com today and use the promo code LOCKEDONGolf to receive 20% off your first order. Only valid through September 30th. Order transfusion-flavored 5 Hour Energy shots today. My name is Carter First, usually co-host of the episodes here on Locked On Blue Jays. Obviously, Braden is not available today, so we pulled in the big guns once again. A guy that needs no intro, Skylar Peters, is back with us. I don't know what it is. Something about you coming back to the podcast. People just get ran over. The first base umpire today was a little bit of a victim to Ty France. Last time it was at the Coliseum. Yusei Kikuchi absolutely blowing up Tyler Soderstrom. That one was a little bit funnier. But we'll dive into a bunch of stuff from today's game. But just make sure you guys are following us here or subscribe to us here on YouTube, following us on all of our social media platforms, whether it's on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. We're all over the place at Locked On Jays. We have Twitter as well, Locked On Jays Skylar. Make sure you follow him as well on Twitter, Skylar A. Peters, and then Braden 5 Owasco if you want to chuck him a follow as well. But Skylar, just immediate reactions. So maybe, Ty France blowing up the umpire, a couple clutch hits in this game, just overall reactions to this series against the Chicago Cubs.
Not the worst play at first base we saw in this series, unfortunately. But happy to hear everyone was okay in this incident, man. What a good series win. You dropped 2 against the LA Dodgers over the weekend, first place team. You go into this series against a team that's somehow like 9 back in the NL Central, but really a really good ball club in the Chicago Cubs, and needed a bit of an answer. And I will say, like, right off the bat, man, watching these games on TV from Alberta over the last 3 days has been incredible to see a full ballpark on a Monday, Tuesday, and a Wednesday day game. They sold out the Rogers Center today. Super impressive stuff, and I'm sure they were loud for Max Scherzer today, for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. hitting that 2-run homer off the end of the bat to a really long part of the ballpark. And a really quality series win. I thought the pitching really shone. Yeah, there's probably a little left to be desired from the offense, but you find ways to win in different games. And I think this just showcases this team has what it takes to win in all facets. When it comes time to September and October, which we're all obviously looking forward to and hoping they get there.
There's an interesting little flip that we've seen, because the whole thing this year has been the offense has kind of been carrying the pitching. The starting pitching really has not been that good. And you look at this series, whether it was Jose Barrios, Kevin Gausman, or Max Scherzer, they were giving you really good outings. The offense only able to muster 8 runs in this series. But you look at the pitchers like Javier Assad, he's not very good. You kind of take advantage of him. You probably could have done more damage to him. Unfortunately, you only are able to score 5 runs in that game, but hey, that's a win. You're not going to complain about that whatsoever. Cade Horton, we talked about it in the last episode, had a 29 straight scoreless run with 29 straight innings where he was throwing just absolute gas, whether it's the changeup, curveball, or fastball. Just a very good young player over there in the Chicago Cubs. And then you have Matthew Boyd today, who has been very good in his age 34 season. So you weren't facing scrubs, but these are the caliber of pitchers that you're going to have to face in the playoffs. But Vladimir Guerrero Jr. showcased the kind of clutch at-bats that you're going to need to have in the playoffs as well. And that's kind of the guy I want to start off with. There's another guy as well. We'll go over to the pitching side who is dominant in Max Scherzer. But Vladimir Guerrero Jr. has been on an absolute tear since the All-Star game. We were always talking about when's the power going to come? When is the clutch at-bats going to come? I guess it was after the All-Star break. A little bit longer than I would have wanted to wait, obviously. Like, I'd love to see Vladdy just, going off in April. But hey, I mean, if he's ever going to turn it on, it's a pretty good part of the season to start doing that.
Yeah, I would honestly echo the exact same thing. I almost get more concerned when guys are hot in April. I remember, who was it a couple of years ago, had a really good April, and then we never really heard from him for the rest of the season. Yeah, it was Matt Chapman. That's it. Now, Alejandro Kirk did it in June. 2 or 3 years ago now. He had an insane June. His OPS is 1,200, right? Like, yeah, that's great, but we need to get to the All-Star break and need to do something after, especially for a team, in the race for a division title. So, super happy with what we've seen from Vlad. I think this is what the Blue Jays really need, because obviously, you've got close to $90 million in Anthony Santander that's sitting on the bench. And I don't even think you hear his name a lot, like when you're talking to Blue Jays fans lately. That was the prize signing of the offseason, right? Outside of Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s contract extension, I guess, in terms of free agents. And, with that power missing from the lineup and really had been missing all year, even with Santander playing games for the Blue Jays, it was time for Vladdy to step up. And, if you have to worry about Vladimir Guerrero Jr. if you're an opposing manager, opposing pitcher, that just opens the door more for guys like Addison Barger, for guys like Alejandro Kirk, Ernie Clement. We've seen it a couple of times in the last 6-7 days, right? Things like that. So just makes this Blue Jays lineup a lot more dangerous. The power has been kind of missing from their game. They seem to have been winning a lot with small ball, especially in June and July. And this is a really good sign moving forward, especially if a couple of other guys can kind of follow that lead and start hitting the ball hard. We've obviously seen Dalton Varsho do it since he returned from the IL too. So really good sign for the Blue Jays. And I think that's something that should give fans a lot of confidence. Like I said earlier, that they can win with the long ball. They can win, with a 2-run shot beating a 1-run shot. That was the only scoring in this game. So really, really impressive stuff from Vladdy. This is what you expected when you spent $500 million on the guy, and happy to see he's delivering.
Yeah, only 3 hits in the game, but when you hit a 2-run home run, sometimes that's enough, especially when you have Max Scherzer on the mound. But just looking at Vladdy's power hitting since the All-Star break, he had 12 home runs before the All-Star break. He's already at 8, so that's a pretty good start. Has played 26 games since that All-Star break. Still has a long way to go. The OPS is over 1,117. So it's a pretty good start, obviously. And when we look at the Toronto Blue Jays lineup, there's a ton of guys that can are contact hitters. The ton of guys that can put the ball in play. There's not necessarily a lot of thumpers throughout this lineup. So you brought up Dalton Varsho. He has been on an absolute tear whenever he's been available, which has not been a lot, unfortunately. Hopefully down the stretch, he can continue to be available and hit home runs from that left side for the Blue Jays. Addison Barger still has some pop in that bat as well. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., like we were talking about, has decided to start turning it on a little bit and through a good stretch. Like the Chicago Cubs are a very good baseball team, especially offensively. Again, shout out to the starting pitching to kind of minimize that, even though they haven't been great since the All-Star break. But now you kind of have the script being flipped here, where you go to the Texas Rangers, the offense, not very good, but you're going to face a lot of prolific pitching. But speaking of prolific pitching, let's talk about Max Scherzer and what this guy is doing for this Toronto Blue Jays team. It seems to get better and better and better every single time Max Scherzer goes onto the mound. He was extremely efficient today through 6 innings. He only threw 60 pitches, and I absolutely love to see it after the 7th inning. He kind of looked at John Schneider. He's like, yeah, like you're not taking me out of this goddamn game. Like there's no shot. I'm going out here for the 8th inning. Didn't necessarily go that well, but I mean, you absolutely love to see that from Max Scherzer, especially at 41 years old, continuing to prove the doubters wrong and definitely helping your prediction out, when earlier on in the season with, I think you were looking for a little bit more innings, but I mean,
90 innings. I need some complete games, Max. I can't do 7+ here. I need 9 from you. But hey, I mean, like this is what you could only have hoped for, I think, when you signed Max Scherzer, like as Blue Jays fans, right? Like today, and in the Colorado series, and Friday night's result last week against Clayton Kershaw and the Dodgers wasn't great. I thought the game was maybe closer than the results showed, but I just sat back. I was listening to 590 and listening to this broadcast on the radio on the way back home, and that was when Max finished the bottom of the 6th. Then Ben Schulman said that there was some indication that he wanted to come back out when that 7th inning started. And of course he was out there, didn't get an out or anything like that. But, just that drive, that fire, I thought was awesome to see from Max. Like Max Scherzer is a Toronto Blue Jay, and it won't be one of those like career, afterthoughts when you see a pitcher and a weird player of any kind in a weird jersey and you're like, oh, he played there in 20 years? Like, no, it's not in Toronto.
Joey Votto experience. Like, that's what Joey Votto is. Like, you're going to think in 15 years, especially if you're not a Jays fan, you might think in 1 year. You're like, when did Joey Votto ever play for the Toronto Blue Jays?
Well, he didn't. That was the thing.
Just the bat absolutely ruined his Blue Jays career. And maybe that's what ruined the 2024 season. They all went downhill right after Joey Votto kind of took a dive.
We needed an old guy to lead the ship. I guess, like, having Chris Bassett, Kevin Gausman, Jose Barrios, like, we're not talking about spring chickens in the starting rotation, but we need an elder statesman. I think Max might have looked at John and be like, man, I'm just about as old as you. All right. I'll tell myself when I'm coming out of this ball game. That was really cool to see. And obviously his best start of the year. What was it, 78 pitches? I think he threw in total, went out for the 7th and wasn't super successful. And then the bullpen came and clamped it down between Brendan Little and Sir Anthony Dominguez, and the 8 batters they faced, they struck out 6 of them in a 1-run game. That's exactly what the Blue Jays needed. It was really cool to see.
Well, especially those 6 strikeouts, they were every single out in the 8th and 9th inning. So that's a pretty good way of getting out of some jams. With some runners on in both innings, if you're striking out hitters, they can't do really anything to you because they're not putting the ball in play like the Toronto Blue Jays are so good at doing. But that's just the way the bullpen's constructed. Is that we've talked a lot about Jeff Hoffman recently and some of his struggles in the closing spot. Myself and Braden both kind of said Jeff Hoffman's still our closing pitcher, but maybe it's not as black and white as, he's going out there blindly every single 9th inning. We're looking at some of the matchups now. If it's just 3 lefties coming up to the plate, maybe throw Brendan Little in that situation. If you need some swing and miss, maybe throw Seranthony Dominguez, especially if they're right-handed hitters, because that's where he has his strong suits. But Jeff Hoffman today, you saw Seranthony Dominguez today, Brendan Little, who did have to work through a couple things. But all 3 of those pitchers, and then Louis Varland, we didn't unfortunately see today. But those are the 4 guys that a lot of people are talking about in that closing role. And for me, if you throw any 4 of them, I'm going to be very confident that they can put up a 0 for this baseball club. And that's a very good thing to have down the stretch when you're trying to win the AL East and hopefully continue to be in the running for the American League.
Well, I just think of how hard it must be for an opposing manager to try and make a lineup, right? Like you can't put too many lefties, in that same kind of area of the order, because if you're playing the Toronto Blue Jays that Brendan Little can come in and get some swing and miss or get some easy outs for this ball club, right? And it really comes down to strikeouts and minimizing the walks, which I think has really hurt the bullpen. Recently when they have had their tough days, and today was a great example of bullpen coming in and cleaning up a mess, doing a perfect job. Really fueled by a good start from Kevin Gausman yesterday, I think, which might have saved some arms because they were into the bullpen early on Monday, and then B, Max Scherzer obviously coming out for the 7th was really incredible to see. So everything's kind of working in concert as far as that bullpen's concerned right now. It still feels like it's on a knife's edge a little bit every time they do make that first call to the pen. You kind of wonder how the next 3+ innings or whatever it is on any given day goes, but still in a pretty darn good spot, all things considered, on the bump for the Blue Jays.
Yeah, and continuing to stay at the top of the American League. And it was another game that felt like playoff baseball. You look again at the Rogers Center, like you talked about, 43,000 people packing the Rogers Center on a Thursday during the day. Like that's a pretty good start.
The productivity in Toronto today, like in the financial district, was real low. Like I know it's work from dome, and I don't think too many people were cracking out Microsoft Teams during this one.
Yeah, the stock market might have crashed a little bit for Toronto businesses. Unfortunately, just everyone was at the Blue Jays game, but that's what happens when you're actually playing good baseball. Like Braden's talking about going to obviously a couple playoff games at the Rogers Center. But when we were looking at tickets last year, I don't even want to look at the tickets yet this year because now the team's good. I bet you they have absolutely skyrocketed, just like the Sportsnet memberships. So, I mean, there's just a correlation there, obviously, with Rogers just trying to get all the money whatsoever. Obviously, they have to play Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Maybe they're thinking about that already, 10 years ahead, where they're going to have to continue to pay out this contract. $500 million may be a lot even for that corporation. But you talked about like the feel in the Rogers Center, Max Scherzer showing the emotion. How about the emotion that Max Scherzer showed in the 2nd inning with Davis Schneider, a catch of the year candidate, absolutely lays out in left field. This is a guy that's traditionally a second baseman and kind of just went to left field, so we have more opportunity to play for the Blue Jays. Just a very team-friendly guy. Now he's kind of used as a utility guy, and I'm very confident when he is out there in left field because, oh my goodness, what a catch that was. Shout out to David Schneider. Braden absolutely loved that one. I know that for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. That's actually the first thing I thought of when the highlight popped up on my phone because I didn't see it live, but I was able to catch it when they were rolling the highlights on Sportsnet. And how about that, man? Like, I didn't even think he had the reach. It looked like kind of a bit of a tough route. He had to kind of route back a little bit more towards the wall and then, just straight diving backwards, basket catch. Really cool to see from Davis. Cool to see Max so fired up, obviously. I think, we saw it a lot with Kevin Gausman off the fastballs in particular yesterday, although it seemed like every time the Cubs hit the fastball on Wednesday, rather, it was like right at Nathan Lucas or, like right in the glove. Like it was like 2 steps, not exactly 2 steps for Davis Schneider on that one, but he's like, I think he's turned into over the last year and a half, like an above average left fielder, in terms of fielding. So, for a guy that is like the 24th to 26th man on this roster, he has to do something to stay on it, especially, when a team's gearing up for, a potential pennant chase, that sort of thing in October. Young guy like this who's been through up and downs already in his young career, like super high highs and, super low lows almost in the same month. Really cool to see from Davis Schneider. So really, really happy for that. And it's nice to see the pitcher giving him some love after, of course.
Yeah, I think he has reasons to be motivated because there's a lot of competition in that clubhouse right now. Ernie Clement is literally Barry Bonds against left-handed pitching. My friend, Whereas that trade deadline, I didn't necessarily love the move for Ty France.
Ty France is Barry Bonds right now, period.
Exactly. Like this guy, no matter who it's against, like he's just continuing just hit doubles into the gap. So I absolutely love to see that. That's why, maybe I'm not a GM and I let my emotions about players, no matter how they're doing in the season, get the best of me sometimes. But yeah, Ty France has been an absolute pleasant surprise. So Davis Schneider has to play good or else he's going to lose his playing time very quickly. Because again, you look all throughout this lineup, and they're getting contributions from everyone. And it's not like they're just, getting the odd hit here and there. Like Joey Loperfield has like a 1,000 OPS. Miles Straw is just bunting, it seems like, every single game, and he's laying down perfect bunts every single game. If you look at Ernie Clement's OPS against lefties, it's over 1,000. Davis Schneider, I think on the season, has like an 800 OPS. Like these guys have continued to just show success for the Toronto Blue Jays ball club. And that is obviously one of the main reasons that they are atop of the AL East right now. But we've talked a lot about the pitching in this episode. We talked a little bit about Alek Manoah making some rehab starts, Trey Savage being promoted to the AAA ball club. What does this all mean? Shane Bieber making a start, obviously, in Buffalo as well on Friday. So he should be scheduled to come back at some point in the next week. What does that mean for the starting rotation? We're going to dive right into that after this short break.
Time to fuel it up and turn it up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. This grape, ginger, and lime flavored shot brings the iconic taste of a golf course favorite to a non-alcoholic boost. Perfect for sinking birdies or making great memories with friends. It's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Now, whether you're out on the course or you just need a little extra push to power through your work from dome day, perhaps, 5-Hour Energy Transfusion delivers the clubhouse favor you love without ever leaving the green. I actually tried this on Saturday, had a late night Friday night. Guys had the early tea time across town in Calgary. It's a long drive everywhere you go. And I wasn't planning on buying a 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. I was maybe just planning on getting the regular 5-Hour Energy. Saw this out there. We're going golfing. Works perfect. And the boys, we were able to at least suffer through the rest of the round without anybody falling asleep on the golf cart. Great nap afterwards as well. It was a true 5-hour energy boost for us. So golf is all about good times with good people and good flavors. The grape, ginger, lime flavor of 5-Hour Energy Transfusion gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without leaving the course or chasing down the bev cart. Now you can amp up the fun even more. Just buy, snap, and enter for a chance to win a golf trip for two to any tournament in the USA. Tee up that trip. Visit 5hewin.com for full rules and entry. No purchase necessary. Excludes the Masters. Ends October 31st, 2025.
So we are back here with Skylar Peters for our weekend episode. Big series against the Texas Rangers ahead. We will be previewing that in the third segment. But there's been a lot of talk about the Blue Jays starting rotation with a lot of guys performing better than expected. Eric Lauer being one of them. Max Scherzer obviously being very hot recently. Kevin Gausman starting to kind of get the vintage starts we've been seeing from him. And then you got some guys coming off the IL. You got Shane Bieber, who again is making hopefully his last rehab start in AAA. That is going to happen on Friday. So if he gets another 5 days rest, should be ready sometime at the end of the week, maybe for that Thursday start. And then you have, again, Alek Manoah and Trey Savage being promoted to AAA. And then also coming out of the bullpen. So that's another kind of factor that you have to talk about with Trey Savage. I think there might be a reason that the Toronto Blue Jays have started to do that. I don't think they want to transform Trey Savage with the numbers that he's had starting for his teams. And just all of a sudden throw that in the bullpen wouldn't really make a lot of sense. But there's a ton of talk about Skylar. So I guess we'll start it like this. Toronto Blue Jays have a ton of starting pitchers available. It's going to be Shane Bieber, Kevin Gausman. You guys obviously know the starting pitchers on this team. What do you think they do when Shane Bieber and Alek Manoah are available to pitch for the Major League club?
I don't think you're going to have to worry about Alek Manoah being available to pitch for the Major League club based on his rehab start yesterday. What day of the week is it? Geez, Wednesday. What a stretch for Buffalo Bisons fans, by the way. Alek Manoah, Shane Bieber, and Trey Savage in a 3-game stretch. And you also have George Springer down there as well playing on his rehab stint. So shout out to those guys right now. It's going to be a fun time at the ballpark. But I mean, Alek Manoah was way under expectation. He kind of cruised through the first inning, looked pretty solid, and then the control just kind of got out of hand. The velo is not there for him. I think we've all mostly been saying on this pod, no matter who it is, over the course of the year, anything you get with Alek Manoah is basically found money. I don't think you're going to find that money this year. I don't think in his best interest. I don't think it's in the team's best interest, obviously, with the aspirations they have. Shane Bieber, obviously, a completely different story. This guy was acquired knowing that he was, probably 3.5 weeks away from getting back to the majors. Former Cy Young Award winner, guy that's 40 games over 500 in his career. This is, the David Price acquisition of the 2025 Toronto Blue Jays. If he can reach that level of reverence, with Blue Jays fans, as David Price did in his short time with this team, then I think, this team's probably going to be playing deep into October. So really excited to see Bieber here. I think everyone's talking about Eric Lauer can go to the pen. It's like a victim of circumstance thing. Obviously, it's, something he's done a lot in his career. It probably is the case. I don't hate the idea of a 6-man rotation. I don't know if you and Braden have discussed this over the last couple of pods as well, Carter. But I think with the horses that the Blue Jays have gone out with every 5 days, Jose Barrios has never missed a scheduled start in his major league career. Still, it's like one of the most incredible stats that I think there ever has been. Obviously, Kevin Gausman and Chris Bassett are such pros. Max Scherzer is super dialed right now, but yeah, he is 41. And I think we're all starting to kind of forget about that thumb injury, but that is still a thing. And I want all these guys to be fresh for October. So I don't hate it, although I think the Blue Jays have a little more in terms of off days than they would probably want if they were trotting out a 6-man rotation for a little while. But, if we get through 2 more rounds of this rotation with Eric Lauer and Shane Bieber still being a part of it, then I think that's probably a good plan for the Toronto Blue Jays. And Alek Manoah can, just kind of work on his craft. Another offseason to recover from that Tommy John, I think, is probably in his best interest. And we'll see what he brings to a rotation that, might look a little different in 2026. And Trey Savage is super interesting to me. His bullpen appearance in AA was, 5 innings in relief. So it wasn't necessarily go in and go fan 3 guys and sit back on the bench. But super, super interesting. We've seen what young guys can do. We just saw it yesterday or 2 days ago, I guess, when we're listening to this for the Blue Jays. In terms of young guys, it's hard for major league pitching to figure them out when they get to the league sometimes. If that's something that John Schneider and the Blue Jays brass feels that will add to their team, then I'd love to see it. It'd be super exciting for sure.
Yeah, I'm going to address this in reverse. So I'll start with Trey Savage. Normally when you have a guy that you just drafted the year before, unless he's like a Paul Skeens, you're not really going to rely on him to pitch for your team, especially that draft year. But with the way the Toronto Blue Jays roster is kind of constructed, and just the way they're playing right now, when we go back to the start of the season, let's be honest, a very small percentage, if anybody, did not think the Toronto Blue Jays were going to be contending for the American League at this point, have the second best record in all of baseball. So this doesn't happen every single year, obviously. If you look at the New York Yankees, who are just in the World Series, they're struggling to even, we're going to be talking about them being around 500 soon with the way that they're playing right now. Never mind even making the wild cards. So things can go up and down very quickly. So this team just feels different. This team, there's a little bit of magic to it right now. So if you have some guy in AAA, whether, he's 21 or 41, like Max Scherzer, if he's going to get you out and he is going to give you the best chance to win that baseball game, at some point you have to say, kind of screw the service time, screw, the confidence issues. If he's going to give you that chance, you might have to throw him in there. So if Trey Savage is going to continue in AAA, have a 15 Ks per 9, at some point he's going to play his way into maybe a playoff roster. But I think if you're going to have Trey Savage on this playoff roster, you don't just throw him in for his first appearance in the playoffs. I think you kind of have to get his feet wet, obviously, and in the last couple of weeks of the regular season. But I think a lot kind of has to go. I don't love the prospect of this entirely, because you have Shane Bieber. You went out and traded assets for Shane Bieber. You have Max Scherzer, who looks really good. Kevin Gausman, who has some playoff experience. Jose Barrios, Chris Bassett might have options there as well. Eric Lauer, if there's a lineup with a lot of lefties. So I think if it's a little bit of a last ditch effort for me, I think it's very unlikely. But if he continues to dominate, they're kind of forcing the Toronto Blue Jays' hand at that point. So that's kind of my thoughts there on Trey Savage. As for the starting rotation, we have talked about the 6-man. I've kind of flip-flopped about this a lot. Initially, I did not want to do the 6-man, like you said, because of the off days, and I have them written down here. So for August, they're off. They have an off day on the 21st, also on the 28th. But this is the stretch where it kind of hurts them: 28th, September 4th, and September 8th. So at this point, now you're having some guys, it's not 6 days rest anymore, it's 7 days rest. Yeah. And we saw what happens with Jeff Hoffman when some of these pitchers are on 7 days rest. I'm not saying that's going to happen to everybody. Some people might benefit from it, like Kevin Gausman might be a guy specifically that would benefit from it. But I don't necessarily like that idea of the 6-man. Then I thought, oh, maybe move someone to the bullpen. And then I kind of was like, okay with the 6-man, but now I'm back with, I don't think the 6-man is going to work long-term. But a lot of the times when we talk about how you're going to, kind of remove one of these guys from the rotation, a lot of the time performance, or hopefully not this, but injury kind of answers that question for you. So when we talk about who you might remove, Eric Lauer is probably going to be the first guy that a lot of people talk about. For me, with what Eric Lauer is doing, minus like this last start against the Dodgers, it's really hard for me to remove Eric Lauer, especially for the rest of the season, because he has been your most consistent pitcher. So if I'm going to remove any guy, it's going to be the guy that has been flexible in where you've thrown him. And one of your pitchers that has been a little bit unreliable, but I'm still confident, if he does go out there. And for me, it's Chris Bassitt, because we've seen him come out of the bullpen. We've seen him operate on short rest. We've seen him operate on extra rest. So what they might end up doing, and I wouldn't think this is the craziest idea for Chris Bassitt, is that they might just skip a start from Chris Bassitt. Maybe they do keep that 6-man rotation, but during that stretch where they have a bunch of off days, maybe they just let Chris Bassitt throw a side session, and hopefully that is enough for him, especially a guy that, is so resilient and kind of, can do whatever. He could probably just not throw a baseball for 2 weeks, then come back and still be dominant as well. So I think Chris Bassitt, if you're looking at a guy that kind of has that adaptability, Eric Lauer, another guy, like you said, has done that throughout his career as well. So for me, it's one of those two guys, but I would lean a little bit more towards Chris Bassitt, because I like having that left-handed option, kind of with that extended, if we have extended relief, or again, if you have a playoff scenario where it's, predominantly left-handed lineup, you have Eric Lauer, who can go multiple innings for your ball club.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And, honestly, when you look forward to a playoff roster, Max Scherzer is now firmly in the starting rotation conversation for a playoff team, which incredible to say. Given that he pitched 3 innings in the first 2 months of the season. So, I think the adaptability is really going to help these guys, even be available for the Blue Jays, because there are some really, really tough decisions to make. John Schneider's making them with the lineup every day, but soon he and the brass are going to have to make that with the playoff roster, if everything goes as planned for the Toronto Blue Jays over the next 5 weeks. So, I think Chris Bassitt, he's shown that he has a willingness to do it. Final game before the All-Star break, he came out of the pen for the Toronto Blue Jays. So he's done it this year. It would be a little bit crazier to expect Kevin Gausman or Jose Barrios to come out of the pen. I don't think you're going to see that anytime soon. So I'm with you.
Yeah, the only pushback, I guess, with the Chris Bassitt stuff is this has been one of the guys that's known as the big three with the Toronto Blue Jays. One of the guys that's kind of got you here in the last few years. Went through 2024, how bad that was. I think one of the reasons why this team is so good in 2025 is because they realized how bad they were in 2024, realized how bad it sucked to lose, a million games is what it felt like, and have, an absolute dead offense and a bullpen that couldn't get literally anybody out. And I haven't thrown this prospect out there yet, but what if, like, with a major injury like Tommy John surgery, as much as Shane Bieber does look unbelievable in AAA, it is AAA. I don't even want to say this, but what if Shane Bieber is not the guy that Shane Bieber has used to be? Maybe you don't have to change anything. So there is still a lot of uncertainty with this Toronto Blue Jays ball club. But again, a lot of questions will be answered when Shane Bieber comes back sometime at the end of next week. And then with Alek Manoah, I didn't really talk about him too much because, again, the velo's down, the command's kind of all over the place, a lot of the issues that have been persisting. And with Alek Manoah, the only reason we were even talking about having to use him is because we didn't really expect Eric Lauer to be this good. We didn't really expect Max Scherzer to be this good down the stretch. So now you have 6 options that I'd much prefer over Alek Manoah. No need to rush him back, like Keegan Matheson tweeted, more of a 2026 prospect here at this point. Like, I'm almost going Trey Savage over Alek Manoah just with what we've seen just recently. Like, we've seen Trey Savage do it as much as it has been in AA, but we haven't seen Alek Manoah really been consistent whatsoever. So that's not even really an option for me at this point. Like you said, anything you would have got from Alek Manoah would have been really good for this ball club and just not expected whatsoever. But Skylar, is there anything you kind of want to throw in about this starting rotation, any other bullpen talk, or just what you've seen from the Toronto Blue Jays since we've last talked? I know it has been a little while since you have been on this podcast.
Yeah, 2 names that we're not mentioning a lot. Obviously, they're not with the club right now are Nick Sandlin and Jimmy Garcia. Jimmy came back from injury the first time and he was not looking super good. And I guess, Nick Sandlin was really in the same scenario this year. Those 2 guys, if they can come back and be any sort of, form of their regular selves that, we've seen them play to their potential. Obviously with Jimmy, we've seen it a lot more in terms of the Toronto Blue Jays sample than we have with Nick Sandlin, but also additions to the bullpen that will make this pitching conversation, even harder as you look at it as an entire pitching nucleus. And just on your big 3 comment, if Chris Bassitt has to bow out of the big 3 to go to the bullpen, replacing him with a former or a surefire Hall of Famer, Max Scherzer, probably not the worst guy. You're not, it'd be a little tougher to swallow if it was for Trey Savage, but I think for for a guy that's going to be enshrined in the Hall of Fame in Cooperstown pretty soon. I think Chris Bassitt, a guy that loves the game, respects the game, he'll be just fine with that.
Man, he's just a guy that wants to win. He's a Grizzlies vet. He doesn't really care about the money anymore, the accolades. He just wants that World Series trophy, and you definitely got to respect that. But my last thought with Trey Savage is that I think the only way we really see him in the MLB is if things are going extremely well, and that's definitely a very good thing for the Toronto Blue Jays at that point. But like I said, the train kind of keeps rolling on the tracks here. The Toronto Blue Jays are able to win a series against a tough NL opponent. But now they move on to a polar opposite, a team that doesn't necessarily have the best offense, but they have a gauntlet of a starting rotation to go against. Hopefully they can continue on and win another series. But a ton more that we want to go into to preview this series, and we will dive into that after this break. Today's episode is sponsored by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder where did all my money go? Between the dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place, so you can stop just managing your money and start building your wealth. So I talk about multiple examples about how I have saved money in the past, but I'll talk about Brandon's example here. And he's still having some trouble with this because he just continues on buying Jays hats. I think he doesn't think that 15 is enough. He needs to get at least a 20, so he continues to buy those hats. He did get Monarch Money, though, realized, hey, he was spending, hundreds of dollars on hats. Unfortunately, it didn't change anything, but at least he was aware of the situation with Monarch Money. It will make you aware if you do have some unhealthy spending habits, and it will help you budget for the more serious things in life. So you can take control of your finances today with Monarch Money and use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year.
Just laughing out loud. It didn't change anything, but he is aware of the issue. If you have more self-control than Brandon Wasco, Monarch Money can help you.
That's the issue.
It's not hard. It's not hard to have more self-control than him.
Yeah, if we're looking at baseball savant percentiles, he's like in the third percentile, maybe for self-control. So I think there is, maybe the odd person. You got to look pretty hard to find him. But
deep blue in that side of the strike zone for sure.
Yeah, you could ask him about how many hats. Maybe one day on the podcast we'll go through all the hats that he has here. He probably has a million in a basket somewhere under the staircase or something.
This guy like a good winter episode right there.
This guy goes through hats like he goes through toilet paper. He's always in the bathroom as well. So that's another issue that we got to talk about here. But we'll move on to a Ranger series that maybe will be very important for the Toronto Blue Jays ball club again. Hopefully that it won't be an issue because the Texas Rangers are, struggling for a wild card spot. The Toronto Blue Jays at the top of the American League. But crazier things have happened. There still is a bunch of games left. And while the offense, like I said, isn't necessarily the scariest monster, they do have some tough pitching matchups on the horizon. So on Friday, Jacob deGrom, another game against him, unfortunately, the way the schedule worked out, versus Chris Bassitt. Then you do have in the next game, you got Patrick Corbin, who's been a lot better than expected. I'm used to Patrick Corbin being one of the worst pitchers that I've ever literally seen.
I'm a Patrick Corbin hater, and I just looked up his stats during the break, and I was like, oh, yeah. I mean, he's okay. This is terrible news.
Yeah, it's been worse over the last month or so, but a 4 ERA for Patrick Corbin when you got 3 or 4 other guys that are going to be way better. And if they do make the playoffs, you won't have to rely on Patrick Corbin, but just being a guy that eats innings. But that is against Eric Lauer, so you do have a lefty-lefty matchup there. And then the one that I'm really worried about, a guy that's on my fantasy team. So I hope he gets absolutely annihilated. I'll sacrifice my fantasy team obviously for the Toronto Blue Jays, but Nathan Eovaldi versus Jose Barrios. What are you expecting to see from the series? And then just give us your prediction overall from this weekend series against the Rangers.
Yeah, the Blue Jays just scored 8 runs in 3 games. I think they might score 9 over the next 3. Very similar. It's going to be a very similar series in terms of the, Texas pitching to the Blue Jays bats. I think obviously the Cubs they came into that series as the second highest scoring lineup in the league or something like that. And obviously they managed 6 runs over the 3 games, I guess it was. So I think honestly, I don't think it's a terrible spot for the Blue Jays to be in, having gone and faced, these guys over the last 3 days, especially with Boyd, who is in his mid-30s and had a really solid outing. You're basically seeing 2 more of those guys on at least Friday and Sunday. And hopefully we have a reason to hate Patrick Corbin again on Saturday in between. And then I think it's Paul Skeens on Monday, if I do remember correct. So it doesn't get any easier, even though you're going to Pittsburgh after this series. So I just think the team's going to be in the right mindset. Obviously, they're still at home. I would be shocked if, less than 2 out of the next 3 games are sold out. I'm flying right over Toronto this weekend too. And I didn't do the diversion for the Saturday game. It's my birthday. It was a terrible call. And
You might have to bring the parachute.
I'm going to park in the exit row on Sunday. And oh man, yeah, super tough. But I actually don't hate the spot the Blue Jays are in, just given the fact that it's a continued homestand. It's kind of a similar mentality I think that the batters are going to have against this pitching staff, and they're going to have to be ready to kind of scratch and claw out some games. And the fact that Max Scherzer and Kevin Gausman kept the bullpen relatively fresh over the last 2 days, I think is going to be a big help in case this Texas Rangers offense somehow catches fire and gets one of these guys out of the game early. So I think a sweep's in play for the Toronto Blue Jays this weekend. I think this might be a moment. It's midsummer. The Blue Jays are, like you said, one of the best teams in the American League. A lot of folks are looking forward to October. The energy's back at the ballpark, and this might be a spot where people around the league start to take notice. Okay, Rogers Center's going to be a real tough place to play for the next 5 weeks, especially if their fans get behind them.
Oh, absolutely. And if I remember correctly, the last time the Toronto Blue Jays played the Texas Rangers, didn't score a lot of runs, but Bo Bichette ignited a run that has been absolutely generational, and why we've seen the Toronto Blue Jays here atop of the American League East and the top of the American League. So maybe they'll start, another pretty good stretch. I want another 11-game win streak. Let's just, firmly assert ourselves at the top of the American League. I know some people are going to be like, oh, well, we got to play meaningful baseball down the stretch. I don't care. I want to buy. I don't care about the meaningful baseball on the stretch. Give me a buy. Get me out of the wild card round. If that is a possibility for this Toronto Blue Jays ball club, I think a bunch of people would jump on board, especially with the previous history that the Toronto Blue Jays have had in that wild card series. But I guess I got one more question just to end it off for you here. So after the trade deadline, obviously a lot of teams in the American League got better. Before then, the American League, when it compared to the NL, didn't really match up. I don't think it still matches up. But if there's one team in the American League right now for you that kind of scares you a little bit, makes you a little bit nervous for the Toronto Blue Jays stretch and getting a bye for the playoffs, maybe making a World Series run, you got to go through that one team. Who is that for you?
I think it's the Seattle Mariners. I think in the NL, it's obviously Milwaukee Brewers. They're the team of destiny. Can we just give them the World Series trophy now? Going to make it 13 straight wins if they play tonight. I don't think they do, but they're getting contributions from everybody, and everything is starting to click for the Mariners. Julio Rodriguez, I think he's been good defensively all year, but like a real slow starter. But he's rounding into form. I mean, Josh Naylor is incredible. Somehow a base stealing threat. It's like Alejandro Kirk swiping 20 bags for us. I don't know how it's possible watching this doesn't compute, but he's been awesome. Eugenio Suarez was the number one bat on the market, I think, in most people's minds going into the trade deadline, and they obviously picked him up too. And we're talking about Josh Naylor almost being a more effective bat than Eugenio Suarez, and that's not saying Suarez isn't doing nothing. That's just saying what a job that the Mariners have done. And obviously it feels like for the last little while, they've been kind of wasting a really, really good pitching staff, something Blue Jays fans can relate to over the last couple of years. But this lineup's really, really coming together. And if they could play well defensively, I still think there are really questions, especially up the middle of the infield with JP Crawford. But I think this team is, really poised to make a deep run. They are cursed, and so are the Toronto Blue Jays. It's been a long time for both these teams. So would love to see them in an ALCS, but we'll see how that one goes.
Yeah, if it is an ALCS, I would be okay at facing the Mariners, but I don't want them at all before then, because you didn't even bring up Randy Rosarena or the big dumper, who's hitting just 1 million home runs, continuing to be absolutely dominant and maybe an option. I mean, Eric Judge is back now, so maybe not as likely, but definitely an option for AL MVP over there in Seattle. So yeah, a lot of good things going on over there again with the dominant pitching staff. A very good team. Yeah, two teams that have underachieved, to say the least, for a lot of years. So that would be a fun ALCS, as much as I would be absolutely terrified.
What do you think about Houston? Houston's pretty scary.
Yeah, Houston, for me, is probably just under Detroit. And the only reason I'm starting Detroit in like a 5-game series is that you can probably pitch Tyreek Skubal twice in that series. And if you can, split 1-1, I think you have a pretty good chance. But we've seen how good Skubal is. We've seen, the quality of at-bats the Toronto Blue Jays had in that game, but still not really able to muster anything. So that would scare me a little bit. But when you look at the Astros, I don't know how they're this good when you look at the lineup. There's a lot of guys that, just didn't necessarily expect to be playing the way they are. but they still have, a lot of good starting pitching. If you have, especially if this won't happen probably, but a wild card series, Christian Javier, you got Framer Valdez, like Hunter Brown. There's a lot of guys that are pretty scary over there in Houston, especially from a starting rotation standpoint. So there's still a lot of good teams in the American League. I'm not that scared of the Yankees. I'm not that scared of the Red Sox. They are kind of a scrappy team though. I think the Rangers would give this team a lot of trouble in a playoff scenario. So the American League had got a ton better at that trade deadline. So I think, it's obviously going to be tough no matter who you play. Playoff baseball is a completely different animal. We got to see how the Toronto Blue Jays are playing at that time. There's still a month and a half between then and now. The Toronto Blue Jays, could be on an 8-game win streak. They could be, God forbid, on a 7-game losing streak. I would absolutely be pulling my hair out if that was the case. But a lot of baseball to be played, and that's why they just got to continue winning more series than they lose at this point. You kind of keep your head above water. Obviously, you will have bigger goals than that. But if you go 500, you make the playoffs. If you go, 4 or 5 games above 500, you have a pretty good shot at winning the AL East. You go, 8, 9, 10 games above 500, you got a shot at the American League. So it kind of depends how well they play down the stretch. But a lot of things and a lot of signs have pointed to them being consistent and being able to play the caliber of baseball we expect from them down the stretch. But Skylar, I just want to say thank you for filling in for Braden, going to watch the Blue Bombers. Hopefully, have a bounce back game, because that has not been a whole lot of fun. The Bombers seemingly it's not even that bad. What are they, 4-3? But it seems like they're sacrificing their season here for the Toronto Blue Jays. And honestly, I'm okay with that. Even though the Grey Cup is in Winnipeg, that definitely kind of sucks. But shout out to Braden as well. It is his birthday, the day that we are recording this podcast. So happy birthday to Braden. He is 47 years old. So shout out to him. He's still looking pretty good for his age. I wanted to give him that shout on the podcast.
Oh,
but
that's
Skylar,
good.
is there anything else that you wanted to add about that Chicago Cup series or the Texas Rangers, or about Braden and his age?
Yeah, no, happy birthday, Braden. It's also my mom's birthday, so my mom is definitely not listening to this, but happy birthday, Shannon. So called my mom earlier today. Actually, I have her and Braden in my calendar, and I meant to text Braden earlier and forgot. So I will do that after this. Red Blacks plus 6.5 for me today. Sorry, folks. I know a rat line when I see one. So we'll hopefully the Bombers get a big win at IG tonight. But they got to turn it around a little bit. Maybe take some lessons from the other team in blue up here in Canada. That seems to be doing pretty well.
I think that was the only thing missing from this episode. I got my little bit of Braden slander in, and you got some bets in for the
yeah, I can't go one without giving you a pick. Come on.
Oh yeah, the boys and girls watching the episode might ride with you. I guess the game's already going to happen, so they won't ride with you.
Well, they'll know if I'm worth riding with the next time or not. Anyway.
Yeah, it's the prove it moment. Multiple Toronto Blue Jays have been doing all year. You're going to have an Eric Lauer run,
and the Bombers win 30-6. Oh, dang! Sorry, guys.
Yeah, imagine just that's not the greatest impression here. After this guy appears after a month as a tough line, especially against the Red Blacks. Oh my God, to be absolutely horrific. But I just want to say one more time, thank you for joining us. And thank you to everyone who has been watching the podcast recently in the last, 2.5 months. Honestly, for the last year and a half, we've been doing this podcast. The support has been unbelievable. We have noticed that about 77% of you guys are not subscribed, though. If you guys are tuning in, watching the reels, the live streams that we do, hopefully not another 999 challenge coming, but maybe Braden will convince me to do another one. Playoff baseball, the live streams, obviously, and then the podcast like we are doing here today. Obviously, it means a ton to us, all the support that you guys have been giving us, and a lot more that we will be handing you guys in the future. An exclusive episode that Braden filmed today will be coming out next Saturday, so be on tabs for that as well. Thank you guys one more time, and we will talk to you guys again on Monday.